And I believe not only just in the professional development, but I believe in the personal development, because if you can help people become better humans and become more comfortable with whether it's helping them understand a financial plan for their own life, whether it's helping them grow in mediating conflict or whatever it might be. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Welcome back to the Better Than Rich Show. I'm your host today, Mike Abramowitz, and I've been looking forward to this conversation for the last several weeks with Tim O'Brien. Tim, thank you so much for being here, brother. I appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to share.
Well, while we're in the green room, before we click record, I was just kind of letting you know that you might be the first, hopefully not the last, individual that we've had as a guest on the show that has built the business from zero to over $100 million type of business milestone and on up in the trades. We've had many people that have been on the show that have built $100 million businesses, but not specific to the trades. And for you to be the mastermind behind a self-created machine of a business that is just crushing it out in Wisconsin, I'm going to do my best, listener, to pull out the tactical best practices that this man has done to build over $100 million business. So I don't exaggerate anything. Can you just give the listener just context of, how long you guys have been in business, who you primarily are serving, what are the actual revenue numbers today? So that way, like, I'm not exaggerating or embellishing anything.
So we started the home building company in 2007, right as the Great Recession was starting to take a stronghold. And at the time, it felt like it was going to be really, really difficult. But honestly, hindsight being 2020, it was the best time for us to start because there was a lot of talent available for us to be able to pick up during that time. But so we're a home building company in the Wisconsin area. Like I said, we started in 2007. When we first started, it was basically just me and my sister, running the operation. But it was, it was definitely an opportunity for me to start my own business, which I had worked for, larger home builders prior to that, one publicly traded home builder. So I learned a lot from those two entities that allowed me to come in and build a company and where we're at today. Where we're at today, we'll close about 230 homes this year, and we'll do about $138 million in revenue.
Damn. All right. Listener, I didn't want to embellish. I knew it was over 100 million, but 138 million. It's when you get to those numbers, what's an extra 38, right? So really so impressive. And it's been less than 20 years. So
for 18 years in June.
Yeah, so I want to unpack a lot of this at the different stages. And listener, I just want to also give a recognition to Ryan Williamson, who made the connection and introduction to Tim. He's a fellow front row dad, so we've crossed paths. Justin Donald has been on the show. We've crossed paths. So again, the front row dad community bringing amazing people to the Better Than Rich show. So Tim, let's start with the zero, going back to 2007. So you learned a bunch. You learned a bunch from mentors and, being kind of fly on the wall or being in the business with another company, and said, I'm going to start this own thing with my sister. Pathway from 2007 to the first, 7-figure jump. Best practices, lessons learned, what you know now. What would you say to somebody who's in that season right now?
So for us, I mean, again, I had my sister had worked for me at the former company that I had come from, and she wanted to really jump on this with us. So she was our first one. Her discipline, her background, if you will, was basically selection. She's an interior decorator. But what we did when we started is she basically had to figure out how to pay us. And so she had to become accounting and payroll. And so, we leaned on people that I knew from my past, I had a lot of lunches, a lot of breakfasts with people to try to get a feel for like what kind of support network do I need to get this started? What types of things should we be considering? Of course, we had to go out and get all the foundational stuff like insurance, the general liability insurance for the building operation. We decided to provide health insurance for our group. So those are some of the initial things that we had to set up. But what ultimately happens is, we hired another person maybe 6 months later in marketing to help support getting our brand rolling. But basically, I was a general practitioner for almost 2 years. I mean, I was the chef, I was the cook, I was the bottle washer. And really, my discipline is more operational based. So I focused on the cost control and the purchasing. How am I going to best buy this to compete with builders that are larger than us that can buy at better volume? Again, starting during the Great Recession helped a ton because a lot of trade partners at that time were doing a lot of work. So that helped support us being able to buy better. But it really was a full operation, me taking on this very general practitioner type role in the operation. And I did that for quite some time, honestly, probably too long before I really started to hire support. But that was pretty much our first, I would say, 12 to 18 months within the operation. I really focused on hiring positions that I felt less comfortable in, more weekend. For me, that was marketing. So I made sure I went out and got the best marketing person. And then for the positions that I was strong in, I just found, for me, that's building operations, building construction in general. I found people that I could rely on, that could check back in with me as we're building homes to make sure things are going right. But I was able to pull myself out of the manufacturing environment, if you will, so I could still stay focused on cost control, because at the end of the day, cash flow, you could be profitable, but if you don't have your cash coming in for me to pay our trades, that becomes a problem in a business. So cash flow was another big thing, figuring out where that credit was going to come from and how we're going to be able to keep the cash flow moving each and every month. So that was kind of our initial piece before we started to really look at the next stage of growth within the organization.
Okay, let me ask a couple of like elementary questions. They might seem elementary, and I just want to hear you answer some of these. So, um, when you start the business and you're focused on operations, was it just how are you getting client acquisition? Like, how are you finding new clients? Was it you already had an email list, or how did you initially get that first pool of customers
Yeah.
to go with you versus elsewhere? Like, what was the setup there? And then how like did you establish how like debt in order to launch this thing, or were you using other people's money, or were you just let me sell the homes and then use the money from these to fund the next project? Like, if you could get into maybe some of the nuance there. Again, I know it's like maybe extremely personal and you don't feel comfortable sharing, which is totally cool if you don't want to, but I am known to like ask the like below the surface type of questions if possible.
Sure. So, in terms of just exposure for us, it was getting some vertical going, getting some homes going, getting signage out there. We immediately jumped into what is the brand, defined what the brand was. We worked on the website, we worked on our logo. We went through a couple iterations of what we wanted for a logo, but we had to get some branding out there because we're business to consumer. And so the website was important. We at that time, Facebook was pretty early, but we were getting into buying ads through whether it's Facebook or through Google platforms, and just trying to get our name out there, whatever we could do most efficiently with the money that we had. The other part of it too was getting involved with our industry associations to try to get involved in some of their events that we can get some branding, some of their consumer events. So we have a home builders expo every January. We have a parade of homes in the summertime. So we got pretty actively involved with that pretty quickly. That helped to kind of get the brand out there. We did what we call a road show. We called it the Tim O'Brien Homes Road Show. So we took our message out to realtors and to other people that we felt could help support getting our message out there, but realtors being the big one. And we got an opportunity just to attend some of their team meetings. They allowed us in, and we did just a short presentation, and we came in with some literature on who we are as an organization. I really put myself out there as the brand, which we'll talk about a little bit later, because at some point you got to kind of somehow unwind yourself from that. But that's really what we did. We just went through industry groups. And whatever we can get in front of those people who are in front of customers is what we really wanted to do, and start to get some vertical going, because construction gets people excited. So that's kind of how it started. Back to your question about credit. This was a tough time because it was the Great Recession. So we had 3 offers from banks to finance the startup for us. We had our equity we were bringing in. And then when I think it was Washington Mutual went out, the banks pulled all of their offers from us. So we had to seek some investor financing, which was really through one of the owners that at the time that I was partners with. But ultimately, we ended up getting money from small banks. Community banks want to finance small businesses. So, I mean, that's a great place to start, is your local community bank in the area that you're living in. They love to tell those stories, and that's ultimately what we found. And we basically created a credit line, ultimately, is what we have for financing our construction, in addition to the equity that we bring. And that's one of the things as you grow into the organization, as you're growing the organization, you really have to build equity. So there's not a lot of money you could take out as an owner. And that's some patience that one must have. And for us, it was probably a good 7 to 8 years before we actually started taking money out of the company that wasn't to pay taxes. So that's another part of the financial piece. As you grow, you've got to grow that equity in order for you to secure more credit.
It's great. Let me ask you this. Were you subcontracting the operations, and how long before you started bringing on your own internal crew? And then underneath the real underlying question is you are fantastic. You are world class at raising your team with a culture and a healthy environment, giving back to the community, and like that's your MO now, 18 years later. But if you could go back to the foundation, was it always that way when you first started, about how you were vetting talent that was going to be fulfilling on your behalf, whether it was internal and whether it was subcontractor? Just kind of speak to that a little bit. I'd love to hear your thoughts there.
Yeah. So we are strictly a general contractor. So we sub out hire out all of our trades. We've had long-term relationships with our trades. I mean, our most of our mechanical trades have been with us since the beginning. Our HVAC provider and our plumbing contractor have been our sole source providers in those categories since for 18 years, almost pretty much 18 years. It was a few months of startup where we didn't have them, but once we got them, they grew with us, which is great. But the culture piece is real important. And I mentioned early on that I learned a lot of things from the former companies I worked for, and I brought those things into the organization, or at least I brought awareness of those things into this organization. And one of them was really culture. I worked in a public company. The culture wasn't bad. It was okay. I worked for a private company that was real numbers driven, and that was a little hard on people. So that was a little toxic for people, but I was in a market separate from the corporate world, so I could buffer that from my team, but I knew how hard that can be. So one of the things, and I learned this from the Zappos founder, Tony Tsai. He wrote a book, Profits Through People, Passion, and Purpose. And I read that book, I think it was like 2009. And one of the things that he talked about is the importance of culture in an organization. And so, he had founded a company, he sold it to Microsoft. He still had to work at there in Microsoft's, culture there, and he hated it. So when he started Zappos, they knew they were going to hire a bunch of people. So they really wanted to determine what is their core values, what is their purpose. And so that was something that just lit me up when I read it. And I thought, gosh, we're in this stage pretty soon that we're going to be hiring a lot of people as we grow. What do we want our culture to be? And it wasn't just me putting this together. We went through an exercise that was similar to what Tony did, is essentially, talk to the core group of people that we had in the company. What do you really like about this organization? What are values that are important to you? What didn't you like about working at other organizations? And we went back and forth for almost 9 months to develop this. So it wasn't me developing our core values that you
And
could
you were
find.
doing this with your subs, with your
No, with our
contract?
team,
Just your team.
internal team.
Okay.
Yeah,
Did you
with
do
our internal team.
anything with the subs, those HVAC and those plumbers? Like,
Yeah, so we did reach out because there was a couple of the guys there that had done some of this work in the past. So I reached out to them, just kind of shared the path that we're on. We also did eventually, Mike, to better answer your question, about 5 years later, we created a trade council. And what we did in that trade council is something very similar to what we did within our team. And we developed our trade core values. So they developed them with us. So we have 5 core values that are related to our trade partners. And we have an annual trade appreciation every year. And we've done that now, I think this was our 14th year. And they get awards based on those core values. So we nominate a number of people, and there's a grand award in each one of those 5 categories. And at the end, there's the trade partner of the year. But we really celebrate the relationships. We celebrate the recognition of the core values that they bring to our organization, whether it's safety, whether it's communication, whether it's innovation. Those are the categories. But they created that, and I'm a firm believer in getting your core group to help support what your organization can look like, especially the people that you really want to have on your team.
Okay, so just click on 2 things. You said the name of the book, was that Delivering Happiness? Is that what it was?
Yeah, Delivering Happiness,
Got
Pursuit
it.
of Profits. Yep, that's it. Yep.
By Tony. I just wanted to make sure I have the. We'll put that link in the notes. So that way it's this one right here, right?
That's Unreasonable Hospital. Wait a minute. I'm sorry.
Let me
I
make sure I'm
lost it.
sharing the right screen. This one here.
Yes.
Delivering Happiness, A
Yep.
Path to Profits.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
So listener, we'll put that in the show notes for you, so that way you could get access to that book if you want. And then the other piece that you just said, 14 years. So 4 years into the business, you started doing this trade appreciation according to the core values. Approximately what size is your business at this stage?
Well,
Approximately.
at that stage, we're about 20 million 4 years in.
So you already have 20 million. Okay.
18 to 20 million 4 years in.
Okay, cool. So let's go into the gap between, because I definitely want to hit on that piece. That's amazing to do the a trade appreciation. Walk us through this season of, okay, we laid the foundation. You're hustling, you're grinding, you're doing these workshops at real estate offices, getting the brand awareness, you're doing the road show. It's starting to take shape, and you break through that first 7 figures, maybe that first 1 to 2 million. Approximately how long did that take? Maybe in that first 12 to 18 months or so?
That was about 18 months. Again, when you think about our purchase price at that point in time was about 300,000.
Got it.
So the
we break through.
revenue could stack up pretty quick. So we break through, and then I start, feeling the strain of me doing everything. And so, we've got to start making some decisions about hiring. Again, as I mentioned, we want to build the equity at the same time. So we've got this a little bit of an overhead pressure as we grow. And typically when you grow, you've got to lead with your overhead over the revenue that's coming in, provided that you have a clear path in front of you of how you're going to do that. So that's when we really started, we started hiring a few more people, and then we started to get into that culture conversation.
Who were those key hires? Like, which departments did you put them?
So marketing was our first one. The next one would have been production. So again, we're in the field, right? So I don't have a manufacturing plant next door that I can go in and check. I found there was a lot of distance for me to cover, and I could be more effective being in the office, meeting with trades, going over the cost control, the purchasing, the cash flow, than driving to all these different areas of where we're building homes. So the first outside position I hired was really what I call a construction manager, a good construction manager, to kind of go out and schedule the homes. I would be able to get out there at least once a week and do a site visit with him, but he was basically my eyes and ears of what's happening in the field, and he was scheduling the trades. So those were the first 2 positions. Then after that, I kind of, in our market, a good purchasing person is hard to find. So I just kind of hung with the purchasing piece. And then I went after the next piece, which was kind of a sales leader to drive that revenue, because now we were into some other land positions that we needed to really move through. So I needed a sales leader to go out and start to build a sales team. So those were kind of the main positions that we hired. I still kind of held on to the purchasing. I think an owner at that point still has some operational requirements, but now instead of being that general practitioner, you start to get some functional people and they're really just individual operators in those functional roles, but they're helping support, your ability to look at the bigger picture of growing the organization.
And
You know,
I was going to say, with what you know now in those primitive years, right? You're starting to build your team. You start to have these key hires. With what
yeah,
you know now, if you could speak to meeting cadence at that stage,
yeah.
communication platforms, project management tools, just like keeping things open. Because sometimes the guys in the trades, the feedback I get, it's like, oh, my guys don't know how to open up their email, or all these
Yeah.
technologies are confusing. But being like so pen and paper, and today in 2025 is like really tough, but also being too like tech savvy is going to turn these guys away too. So I'd love for you just to kind of like, maybe with what you know now, and
Yeah.
also during that season with what you've already gone through, what counsel you might have to kind of keep communication high and consistent. And the root of that, Tim, is I see some of these guys texting or calling the night before and like sending their crew out, like, hey, go to these 15 different houses, or this is what's needed. It's just like all pen and paper, all manual. And it's just like super like 1998, you know?
Mhm.
So I'd love to just hear what you have to say about that one.
So we had our meeting cadence. I mean, we had a what I call an operations meeting every Tuesday morning, where we would go through the status of every job, under the pre-construction jobs that haven't started yet. And again, we're dealing with maybe 20 30 jobs at best at that point, where we're going through the pre-construction process. Where is it in pre-construction? Where is it in construction? Where are we at with closings and things like that? That was probably no more than a 90-minute meeting. I typically like to kind of keep meetings under 90 minutes if possible, ideally 60 minutes. But that's what we were doing just to kind of stay together as to what needed to get done. And then we'd have to-dos that would come out of that. And then I had a person that would just make sure and follow up with those to-dos, that people were doing what they needed to do before we met the following week. The other thing that we would do is we would do quarterly updates to the team. Those were usually pretty quick meetings, whether they would be over a conference call because our people are dispersed. And then we would do our annual meeting, which is our kickoff in January. And then we get together, everybody's together in the same room for that. And then we do a halftime report and at the end of June, so into July, to update the team of, hey, so here's what happened the last 6 months. Here's where we're at based on what we want to do for our business plan. Here's what we're doing in the next 6 months. And the other thing that we would bring into both those meetings, the in-person meetings, is we bring in, and I'm a firm believer in this, some kind of level of personal or professional development. And so we spend a fair amount of time, energy, and in some cases money in developing our team. And I believe not only just in the professional development, but I believe in the personal development, because if you can help people become better humans and become more comfortable with their, whether it's helping them understand a financial plan for their own life, whether it's helping them grow in mediating conflict or whatever it might be, they're going to contribute more to the team and their personal self than just training on sales skills, training on building science skills, training on technical skills. So we did both. And so in each one of those meetings, we typically have some element of a training component or an understanding of the business. And so that always helped rather than just talking about data all day long. So that was kind of what we did with the cadence. Once we got up to about 25 to 30 million, we did bring EOS in, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, and that was huge. We brought that in 2012, and we're on it today. And that's a great way to truly get traction on your business and get a hold from, again, from an operator owner point of view. You track your most important KPIs. You try to find your leading KPIs. So for us, that was leads. How many leads do we get? How many website hits do we get? Because that we know based on history and our industry data what we could expect for sales in the future. So in addition to tracking your operational metrics to make yourself more productive, more efficiency, making sure you hit your targets. So we really had to bring that system in. And then that really stepped up the meeting cadence component of it, put a lot more structure to it, gave us a lot more feeling of better control over the operation, the communication, and direction for where we wanted to go.
And to make sure I heard this correctly, you had one person assigned to communicating to the HVAC and the plumbers and the trades. Like that was, so at a meeting, there was one person, their job was to communicate what's happening at the internal meeting to these contractors. Did I hear that correctly?
That went on the construction side of the equation, yes. So there's, what's in there is the pre-construction side. So selections, we have to get to the lenders, make sure, again, in our business, home building, make sure the lenders have their documents. So there's a group that deals with that. The other group deal with purchase orders, getting the plans out to the trades, color selections out to the trades. And then once excavation happens, our construction team, right, takes over and communicates via a scheduling program. We used a scheduling program to communicate with our trades, so they would go up into the portal, grab the calendar, grab their POs, grab their plans, and be able to pull those down. So we really tried to work towards moving towards more of a mobile friendly environment, because a lot of our trade partners and a lot of trades in general are using iPads or some form of an iPad out in the field. So making things more mobile friendly, we had to kind of convert our platform over to help support that element of their operation. And really, the other part of it is when we ever met with them to talk about costs, and this is why we work exclusively with long-term vendor partners, is we want to work together to lower the cost of doing business together. And I think that's so important because there's margins can be so tight. And if you're in an inefficient operation, if I'm a trade partner working for a very inefficient builder, I could lose a lot of money. And my margin is going to skinny up. It's going to go down because I'm spending more money managing this builder. So we're very open. That's one of the reasons why we brought that trade council in, is because we want to make sure that what we're doing doesn't cost them more money than it should. And so understanding how you can work together to lower that total cost of doing business together can help preserve margins, create more margin, can help in a time where cost structures get more difficult. You can work together to weather through, whether it's a cost increase or a temporary cost increase, whatever it might be. But I think just that having that relationship with somebody who isn't just going to tell you what to do, but is willing to work with you is so important. Find those relationships as a trade partner. It'll take some time, but find those, value those, hang on to those.
Okay. I definitely want to go in the trade council direction. But before we do, is there anything else in those first 4 years, I guess, in the stages that we did not hit on that you're like, well, before we jump to this trade council, because that's at like the
Yeah.
20 million, is there anything else in those first initial parts that you're like, this is worth us mentioning and bringing some attention to, that was super helpful for you or might be helpful for a listener?
One of the things that I wish I would have done sooner, I did it later, is bring someone in who could help manage my admin stuff, help manage my calendar. I found myself spending hours, sometimes a day, managing calendar, going back and forth with somebody. No, I can't meet you this time. I can do this time. No, they can't meet me. So once I hired an admin person, it was amazing how much time that freed up for me. I wish I would have hired that person sooner. Now, they didn't exclusively just do my calendar. They had other roles. So whether it was HR, whether it was accounts payable, I would say, 25 hours or 30 hours a week, they're in their functional discipline. And the other maybe 10 to 15 hours, they're supporting admin stuff for me so I can get above it. I can't lead from in the valley. I have to get up on the hill. And if I don't have time to get up on the hill and see what's going on, every once in a while I have to go down into the battle in the valley. I have to, but I have to spend more time up on the hill. And what I was finding is I was way more down in the valley, way more than I could afford to be. And it was adding, I was working 70, 80-hour weeks doing that. And so I should have hired that admin person that could support other functions in the company. Because again, it's not a 40-hour-a-week job. And even today for me, it's not a 40-hour-a-week job. My admin person today runs our HR. But it was amazing how much time it freed up for me to be able to get up on top and have a better view of really what's going on in the operation. So that would be the one thing that I think I hired too late on, and I wish I would have done sooner, because managing my calendar, directing everybody back to that person to schedule anything with me, to help me find cadence in my calendar, to find spots that are untouchable so I could focus on the things that I really need to do rather than getting jammed up with meetings. It was absolute relief for me.
Yeah, that's great. It's a great. We talk about the art of delegation, buy back your time. Dan Martell, the replacement ladder. Kasim did a great job on his episode last week on talking about the ways to hire virtual assistants to help tackle some of that admin as an executive assistant. So we probably have like at least 50 episodes on the podcast that mention the importance of delegating your administrative. And I really love what you said of like getting on top of the hill versus being in the valley. It's a really great visual to see that. To make this hard pivot into this trades council. I love this idea. I'd really like for you to break down a couple of things because my hallucination is saying we got the HVAC, the plumber, the electrical, concrete or whatever, and they're all in the same room, and we're just sharing best practices on how to lower costs, how to increase profits, how to increase timeline or decrease timeline, be more efficient, materials, best whatever. That's kind of where my mind is going, almost like this like board meeting that happens once a quarter or something to get all synced
Yep.
up
Yep.
and kind of help him. But I don't know if my hallucination is in the right direction. So just soup to nuts, start to finish, how you started it.
Mhm.
But I'd like to Tarantino it. Start with what it is now, and then go
Mhm.
back to how it started and what the origin was. So that way, someone can hear this and say, "Yes." The end result, that's what I want. And then you could take them through to this is how we built it and how we started it 14 years ago.
Yep. So what it is, so it rotates every year. We rotate people in and out of it, and what we've really focused on is those that are really engaged with us and that really see the opportunity that we're offering them to have a really strong voice in how we operate and also too how they operate together. We don't share it. The trade partner, there's a rotating chair, if you will. That's kind of the structure. But what we found is that these guys and gals actually work together because again, a lot of them are consistent. That they see each other on the job sites. They get to know each other better. What we found is that if there's a problem in the field, they're not calling us, they're calling that person direct and they're resolving it together, which really makes it a lot easier for our team to manage the process in the field. So we're not always the go-between. So that's one of the things that we really found with this operation, this structure of a trade council, is that these guys get to meet each other. They're typically, if not the owners of the company, they're leaders of the company, and they get to work together, get to learn each other's names and how they work together. But they can reach out and solve some of those issues on their own in the field, whether it's logistics or space or whatever it might be, versus us getting involved. So that's created much more collaboration in that team and much more of a partnership for the trades versus just having to go to us all the time. It gives them a voice to give feedback to us on areas that we need to focus on, such as one of the things that we've done, and it seems about maybe every 2 or 3 years, is wasted trips. How many trips should one expect a plumber makes to a job? How many trips are they making? How much does that cost them? We actually brought in a consultant to help support because a lot of these trades didn't understand. They just thought, well, no, that's what we do. But yeah, there's a cost to that. So we came up with a way to calculate that cost using a consultant. And once they started to see, like, hey, this what I thought was really nothing is $150 every time I go out to that job, or in some cases, if it's a big truck, it's 250 to $400. And so once we started really educating and they got a better feel for really what it truly costs them, it's not just a cost of doing business. They were able to push harder on really giving us the data so we could see, and we would work with our team to try to help it make better for them because again, that's the cost of doing business part. So does that answer kind of the structure of the operation of it today, Mike?
I love it. I think it's fantastic. And listener, I mean, I just want you to think about this is real leadership. I mean, most guys in the trades or gals in the trades, they're not like they're really good at swinging the hammer or turning the wrench, and then like they're just like, hey, let me build a business from it. And sometimes they're not thinking about like how do I bring other experts together into the same space and facilitate cross conversations to remove me as the bottleneck. Like, this is real leadership stuff that you're talking about here, Tim. I don't think it comes natural to many of the guys in the trades or the blue collars, and I think what you're speaking to is so incredibly important because what you said, you're removing, you're allowing these guys to communicate with each other during the construction phase, which mitigates responsibility from your team, which potentially also is more efficient because they're
For
going
them.
straight to the source versus constantly coming back to
Yeah.
the hub and then
Yeah.
playing
More efficient
telephone.
for them. More efficient for them. They get an answer
Yeah.
right away. They get an answer a lot quicker than trying to go through us. And we maybe in a meeting with a customer or what have you, they can get their answer much more quicker.
Yeah, I love that. So how would you suggest if somebody wanted to, someone's in a remodeling or really even if it's trade partners, Tim, some of the people listening to the show, maybe they're not general contractors, but they have trade partners, right? They're both
Hmm.
serving the same homeowner, the end user. So for
Hmm.
example, I see a couple people here live, they're in the landscape lighting space or the custom lights and shade space where, they still are having these other guys in the trades working on the same home just differently. So there might be a referral partner or a trade partner that's serving the end user. I know Phil Risher was in the episode. He talked a little bit about how to nurture and foster relationships with trade partners. It's different. You're talking about a trade council, but it's also similar where we're collaborating with other industry experts in a way. So I don't know if you want to speak to that or just go back to
Yeah.
like how you could launch something like this.
I think as it relates to that, I mean, if you have consistency that you're seeing the same people that you're working next to or that come before you or come after you, if there's an opportunity for you, either through your industry association or just reaching out and saying, hey, I'd love to I'm looking for ways to streamline my business. And since we're not in competing sectors, the landscaping lighting person doesn't compete with the landscaper. How about we get together and would you be open to talking about ways that we can, it's almost like a B2B network. Can we get together to talk about ways of how we might work better together or how, ideas that you might have or ideas I might have on how to lower our cost of doing business together or just start lowering our cost. It's a peer group, right? It's like a mastermind. And you'll find people out there that want to grow professionally and want to get better at what they're doing. Sometimes it's just like, hey, man, I just put my head down and go. I get that. I get that. But there are opportunities to connect with those people. Again, it could be through your local builders association. So like our builders association has a B2B network. But if there's an opportunity for you to reach out, like you said, in the leadership part of it, and try to create this group that can get together and find ways to learn from each other, I think that's huge. When we started it, we were working with a lean building consultant who actually came in and we ran all of our trade partners, or at least our key trade partners, through his program. And we just sat there and listened. They had to come up with ideas of what they thought product wise they can do to help us lower costs. What are more efficient ways for us to operate our schedule, operate our field. We learned a lot, and there was some of it was really tough learning, but we had to be very open to listen to it and to take it in and decide what we're going to do with it. But what really came out of that is that opportunity for us to give them a voice in that setting. We found that there were certain people that, my God, they're really engaged with us, and they really want to help us get better at what we do. So those were the people that we kind of identified as potential people for the trade council. So we reached out to them, gave them an invitation, brought them in, recognizing that I would say probably half of them are the field operators. So, we did it we did it early morning is usually what we did. So we tried to get them in early morning so they can get out and get on the jobs. Sometimes we found that lunchtime was better, but either which way, we found people that were engaged in what we were doing, wanted to grow with us, wanted to continue to be a part of it. Probably definitely saw some opportunities for all of us to work better together. And so that was kind of the premise of us selling it to them to get involved. And then we kind of helped facilitate it for the first couple of meetings. And then we stepped back, I stepped out, and we had our construction manager in the meeting with them, but it was really for them to run. It was really their meeting. And that's where we really started to see that growth and collaboration. It took some time. And it was a lot. At any time you bring new people together, there's the storming and norming before you really start to get, some traction on it.
Well, I want to make sure the listener heard one thing that Tim said earlier in the conversation is the values and making sure that these trades guys are also aligned with the values or at least know what the values are. And then you reward them based on the values. So this is right from your website, extraordinary experiences, foster a team environment, embrace social responsibility, nurture a learning and organization, communicating with empathy and understanding, be solution experts, and create fun. So these are 7 core values right on Tim O'Brien Homes' website about us. And you said this is something you did with your internal team, but then you created like some sort of like award system for your
Yeah,
trade partners.
the trade partners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that just a smidge?
Yeah, so we had the teams, like I said, we had safety, we had innovation, we had communication, we had team synergy, and there's one more right now that'll come to me. But basically, what we did, they developed that, and then they created a story to it, and then we just publicized it and put it out there and said, "Hey, this is what your peer group says should be our core values, and these are what we're going to hire trade partners on, and this is what we're going to separate from our trade partner group because this is what your world is asking for us to be on the job sites day in and day out and how we relate to one another."
Did,
And
did
then
I hear that correctly that what I just shared is not the same as the trade partner one?
no, that is for our internal hiring group.
Got
So
it.
the trade partner one is the separate one. That's the one I listed out for you that they developed. That isn't on our site, but I'd be happy to get that to you, Mike, so you could share it with your group. I'd be
Yeah.
happy to share that. So they created that, and then we created awards around that. So again, those 5 categories all have an award, and we get special nomin. We have a nomination. If you get an award, you get kind of the you don't get the grand award, but you're nominated for an award. So we give you a nice big certificate or a plaque. And then the grand award is usually like a nice crystal trophy in that category. And then we get all the way to the end and we look at all of the builders that participated in those 5 different core trade values. And we say, okay, which one really exemplified a greater grouping of those categories? And then they get the grand award. And there's a lot of pride that goes with that. We get people every year coming up to us. If they didn't get it, the question would be is, what do I need to be your trade partner of the year? And we try to really encourage more of these are the more of a positive thing rather than the negative things that might have happened, but really more along the lines of we appreciate your contribution to our organization, and these are the things that got this person to get that award this year. So, but we get probably, I want to say we get over 100 people at our annual awards piece, and we do it in different locations. We do some if we do it in the summertime, we do it outside. We have games and things like that. If we do it in the wintertime, we'll typically have a speaker come in. And in each one of those time frames, though, we're sharing with them how we've done so far and where we're going and what that means for them. They want to know where's the land, where are my next jobs. So we'll lay out the communities. We get them it's kind of a business presentation to them. I will then share some economic data, both globally and locally, to give them a feel of where I see our industry going and things that they need to anticipate. So we're trying to add value to that relationship outside of just the work that we give them.
Yeah. So one thing before we keep going on this journey here as you're growing towards 138 million, is it safe to say that those HVAC, electrical, these guys that we're talking about, those guys in the trades, are you giving them enough business? What percentage of their individual businesses are coming from your one company? If you had a guess, it doesn't have to be perfect because there's the so
Yeah,
what of this is someone listening here as a
yeah.
referral partner. Tim O'Brien's Homes is a really strong referral partner for some of these guys, businesses. So you could be there's a so what there, but I'll come back to bit depending on what the answer is.
It really, like a lot of those trade partners like framers, siders, roofers, those that touch wood, I would say, we're probably a bigger part of their portfolio business. The mechanical trade partners, they have a lot of business, so we're a smaller part. I'm smaller relative to the framers and roofers and siders, but I would say, for our mechanicals, our plumber, we are one of their higher revenue operations because they work with another builder that builds smaller homes, more affordable homes, that they probably get more homes from, but we're one of their higher revenue customers. But it ranges, Mike. It's hard to say. I mean, again, our plumber and our HVAC guy are the ones that we've used since day one. There's our drywaller, our insulator is the same day one. We have an energy auditor that's been with us since day one. So we really want to get those long-term relationships. I would say the average trade partner has been with us 8 years. And for a percentage of business, again, it just ranges anywhere from how small of a business they are to how big and established a business they are.
So here's the question that I have underlying. It's a different question now. You just inspired a new question. How might someone want to get a piece of your, like if they wanted to get a piece of your portfolio as an example, if I'm like using the landscape lighting guy as an example, and you are building a custom home and they're going to need landscape lighting as an example, and they come to you and say, "Hey, would you consider adding a budget for landscape lights as a part of the custom build and use us," and like for them to nurture a relationship with you, for you as the GC to consider a new vendor or a new trade, what would that conversation need to look like to like nurture a relationship or get your attention or to try to court you essentially? So if someone's listening to this and they wanted to court $138 million GC, how might they be able to do that? Can you almost take them into the psychology of yourself,
Yeah.
of what they would need to say to you to foster or nurture that relationship?
I would think first would be just an understanding of who we are and what we do, and that information's all on the website. What I appreciate is somebody who wants to come in, they kind of share with us how they may have some synergies with us based on what our core values are. They do enough research on us that they come in knowing us and know what we need and how they can fulfill a hole that we might have in our lineup, or how they can add value more than what we're getting right now. If it's a new craft that we don't have, like landscape lighting, say, for instance, we don't have that. How does that really enhance what we're looking at as our core values, which you just pulled up? How does that enhance our customer experience? How does that create, more kind of learning, not only learning for our organization, but how does it really, honestly, how does it enhance that customer experience? How can they contribute to that? What are they going to do to support our team in the field? How can they support our team in the field? They have a lead, sell us that you have this one person that we talk to, not multiple people that we talk to, and whatever it might be. But how can you basically, just like we do when we sell to a customer, we need to solve a problem that they may have, they know they have, or they may not know they have, but we have to discover what they really need and what solution can we bring to help support that. But for a trade partner, there's a lot of information on our website. If you learn more about us and how you can contribute to that. For us, we're a green and energy efficient builder, right? We're looking at high performance homes. How can you maybe create a story for us that shows me that your product's going to contribute to that? How can you create a story or paint a vision for us as to how you can help support or enhance that customer experience? We have this great customer service team that if your customers have any problem with this, they reach out through this platform, and this is the person you get introduced to. I'd love to meet your warranty person. I'd love to understand who your service person is in your organization, who my team's going to have to deal with, who my customers are going to have to work with. It's really understanding who we are and what makes us operate and how you can fit into that and enhance it versus the transactional relationship of and in some builders, this is fine, be the low cost provider. We're not the low cost provider. So show me how you can enhance that value into what we deliver for our customer.
So good. That was perfect, Tim. Thank you so much for that. I know we're kind of coming up against the hour, man. This thing flies. Walk us through from anything else at the stage that we're at, which is the $20 million to $25 million, up until where you're at now, like whatever you feel, just rapid
Yeah.
fire of like, this
Yeah.
is what you should know.
I talked about the operating system, some organizational structure, some meeting cadence, because one of the things we found is everybody has something that they need to talk to somebody about, and we can, if we have a good meeting cadence once a week, you bring that in. We bring issues in. I love traction, and I think traction or entrepreneurial operating system works great for small businesses. So if you haven't yet read the book Traction, Gino Wickman, I think I saw that up there. Yep, yep. If you haven't read that yet, that was one of the best business application books I've ever read. And when I read that, I got so flipping excited about doing something with it. It totally resonated with me as we were growing. Consultants will come into play. I think you should leverage when you get to that point. What is some help in your strategy? As you get to that size, you got to start thinking about strategy. What is three, instead of thinking about what I need to do this year, what does your company look like in 3 to 5 years? One of the things I love about Traction is it has a 3-year picture. It defines that picture in terms of some metrics and then just some visuals. What does it look like? If you were to cast out 3 years from now and say, this is what my company looks like, and then you put your 1-year plan together towards getting there. Look 7 to 10 years out. I know these aren't metric numbers. These are just big kind of BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals. What does that look like for you? And then that backs into your 3-year picture, and it all just steps up. So an organizational strategy is important. Again, a consultant will help with that. I found when we did Traction, we brought a consultant in. It was the best thing we do. I know people that try to do it on their own because they don't want to spend the money, but consultants can really help you get a good foothold on your company and strategy. Start develop your flywheel for your business. What is your flywheel? It's probably somewhere. What's your biggest process that you want to work on and become more efficient at? Identify that. Recognize that some of the people that you hired early on may not grow with you. I call those your functional OGs, the original people you hired. As you step into growth, and you have to recognize, and some of them were my friends. Some of them were people that I knew for quite some time, and they just could not grow with us, and they could not take that next step into their position. So be aware of that and recognize that as a potential risk in your business as you grow. At that point, let me just step back. At that point, the company, and this is some of the challenges that we had, the company changes from this kind of intimate, what a family feel, and now they're like, oh, you're becoming corporate. No, we're just becoming bigger. This is just the next evolution, growth in a business. We're not going to stay the same size. We want to grow, and so we're going to stay connected with you, but your position is no longer this generalist position. Now we're going to get you in a more specific discipline. Now you're more of a true technician in this role versus being the generalist that you once were. And that's hard for people because they like to feel connected to everything. And at some point, you're probably going to want to bring in some kind of HR role, as you're growing your team, not only just for compliance, but also for growth of your team, development, somebody that could stay in touch with your group. I mean, turnover is expensive. And if you don't, we have a great person. She's a connector. She's awesome. She stays connected with the team. She understands where the culture is at today. She understands the development challenges that some people need some coaching. And we've pivoted this year with a couple new people that we brought into management that didn't quite have the leadership skills needed, but they're good people. And so we supported them with some coaching, and they're in some coaching right now on how to become better leaders. And it's been great for them. So that's some of the organizational development. There's some big shifts that happen as you move from that 15, 20 million into the next couple 10 or 20 million. There's some big shifts in organizational structure.
Mm. One of the things I love that you said is I visited in the Cutco business for 20 years, and it was like, we're in the people business. We just so happen to sell knives.
We say that about houses.
And that's what I saw. One of the things you said, we're in a people business. We just so happen to build homes. And I really think that you captured that in this episode perfectly about building relationships, values first when you're working with trades, when you're working with your internal crew, building meeting cadence around that, making sure that there's over communication, there's simplicity, we're all swimming in the same direction. You demonstrate, there's so much leadership that you're demonstrating in this episode. And listener, I would go back and listen to this again. This is a masterclass in setting up strong foundational business setup in order to grow to the place where you're able to satisfy 200 to 300 plus homes in a year, which is really fantastic. Gosh, Tim, it flew by. Is there anything that we didn't hit on that you're like, Mike, I really wanted to hit on this today before we go to the final question and close out today?
I think you one of the things you hit on is simplicity, and one of the things that we can get distracted with is all of the little details, and we get things to be too complex. So I love the ability to be able to step back, and we do what we call a plan, do, check, act. We'll look at our process. Is this getting too complex? Is it getting too redundant? How can we streamline it? So there's this kind of audit I think one needs to do at least annually on what they're doing as an organization to see if they're getting too complex. So simplicity is important. The other thing is we talked about the flywheel. As you move up into that next level of growth and you continue to work on that flywheel, now you're in sustainable growth. That flywheel will start spinning a little easier for you. There's a lot less that you need to do day in and day out. You rely on your team, you build your leadership team, you identify who are those that are going to grow with you, and just keep continuing to share your vision. Share your vision. What does this company look like in 5 to 7 years? And what's in it for your team to be involved so they can feel that they're part of something bigger than them?
Tim, we ask every guest the same question. What does it mean to you to be better than rich?
For me, it's freedom of time. I didn't have that for about 15 years of the business. I just kept putting my head down and growing it. And I realized that I wish I would have taken more time to regenerate, to refresh, to reflect, to make sure I don't get to the point of burnout. I did. I hit probably 2 points. I didn't fully burn out, but I hit 2 points where I was almost there. And I wish I would have just been able to step back a little bit, to reflect, to recharge, to have that focus time. Those would be the things. So freedom for your time, I think, is one of the most valuable things that has really offered me an opportunity to grow personally, honestly, to be able to step back and have that time, that freedom time to spend with family, to spend on doing things that I enjoy doing rather than 70, 80 hours a week in the business.
Well, thank you so much. If anybody wanted to follow up and ask any questions or stay in touch with you or Tim O'Brien Homes or learn more, where might they be able to go?
I'd be happy. I mean, I'd be happy to, if you want to post my email address, you can reach out to me, T O'Brien, so TOBRIEN at TOB as in boy, homes, HOMES.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Tim. And listener, thank you for supporting the show. We couldn't have the show without you. And if you're liking season 4, join us live. We do these episodes, recording them live. You can ask the guest questions right there in the chat if you choose to do so. As always, we really appreciate all the support. So remember, leave today better than you found it. We'll see you next time on the Better Than Rich Show. Cheers. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the show, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from us, you can follow us on Instagram at betterthan_rich and join our Facebook group at the Better Than Rich Show. Thanks again for listening. We look forward to seeing you next time. And remember, leave today better than you found it.